I have a question. Is there a better feeling in this whole world than to scrap together your hard-earned allowance, visit your tiny local card shop and buy your first Yu-Gi-Oh! Booster pack? Yeah, likely. But it was a great feeling nonetheless. There's just something mystical about opening these, isn't there? The sheer excitement of what you're gonna pull, or rather, what you could theoretically pull. Gambling for children. How endearing. Jokes aside, as a kid your allowance was likely quite accessible, just like mine, so the opportunities to experience this thrill were few and far between. On the flip side, this made all the Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that would feature card shops where you could actually buy and open booster packs all the more exciting. No, I'm still not over this complete joke of a card shop. During the early 2000s and 2010s, handheld gaming was quite prevalent, and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise made sure not only to flood all existing systems with, well, one game plus a magnitude of sequels each, but they would all include such a feature. As a PlayStation kid, I was mostly playing the Tag Force series, a lovely spin on the typical Yu-Gi-Oh! Formula focusing on relationship building and, slightly less importantly, on tag dueling.
You must duel as a team!
2 on 2?
And what better way to incentivize young players to grind for endless hours than wanting to replicate the definitely not abysmally bad deck of their new best buddy?
Didn't you have one just like that when you were in diapers? Maybe.
In my last video about Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Tag Force 1, I mentioned that the card shop was one of my favorite aspects of the game. The way it incentivizes experimentation with different decks and serves as an in-game progress tracker, all the while also being extremely satisfying to watch, made it a uniquely strong quality of this series. And so, for this video, we will ignore it completely and try to beat the game without using it at all. Wish me luck. Okay, one thing before we start. I know that another YouTuber called YGOTAS essentially beat me to this and already made a video on a very similar challenge. However, since I recorded all the gameplay footage for this run way before even his video was released, I still want to share my results with you, and since we have quite different styles of making videos, I hope you still have fun with this run. Okay, so in order to explain my plan and the potential issues we can encounter, let's quickly talk about what it means to actually beat this game. There are 3 stages. The first one is convincing one or multiple characters to become your partner for the upcoming Tag Duel tournament. This is where most of this game's quote-unquote dating sim aspects come into play, but in reality we'll mostly just buy sandwiches for our partner of choice. The second stage is the tag tournament itself, in which we have to gamble our way from 10 of these certainly not cheap-looking medals, all the way up to 90. We also have to win the duels we bet on ourselves, so don't worry, there will be card games in this video. Eventually. The third stage is a culmination of supposedly more challenging tag duels against the Shadow Riders and a solo fight against the final boss at the very end. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the actual crux of this challenge, the starting deck. One of the reasons why the card shop in these games is so appealing is the fact that Tag Force starting decks usually suck. In the first game, it's not all too bad, but this water deck in particular is not really something that I would like to use against the bloodthirsty villains that want to suckle our souls out of our bodies. Anyway, we have a strong representation of not so strong normal monsters here, some of which have really questionable stats for their levels. Some of our back row cards are not particularly great, and if you've seen Dea's video, you'll know why. Thankfully, the game offers a few other means of obtaining cards aside from opening packs with our lunch money. One of them is randomly picking up cards from the ground, and while that sounds utterly insane, it does yield some promising results. The other option is, and I shit you not, getting upgrades from the one and only Dr. Crowler. For some reason, they seem to like us a lot more than other freshman students in this academy. You see, in this game you can go to class, and while this game mode typically consists of half-baked dialogue sequences and the occasional exam, the first few classes serve as tutorials teaching new players the basics of dueling. If you play these tutorials, even if you quit them immediately after entering, you can get a few cards as a reward, and as luck would have it, many of them are perfectly suited as upgrades for a rather bare-bones water beatdown deck. Splendid. Now that we know that using our god-given water powers is our only real option, it's time to think about which character would make the best partner for us. After all, we do want as much synergy between our decks as possible, while also avoiding completely trashy archetypes. Truth be told, I have not seen Daya's video in its entirety, but I do know that he also went for the same partner as I did, and that is Bastion Misawa.
I ate the sandwich! I wasn't paying attention.
The reason is very simple. He plays elemental-based archetypes, usually centered around his water dragon, so he does play a few water monsters here and there. Additionally, he also has strong back row cards, although all of the main characters do, really. On top of all of this, he generally follows a strategy of spamming the board with decently strong level 4 monsters and simply rushing down the opponent, and in this game this works surprisingly well. It's also the only win condition our deck is realistically capable of, so it's pretty much a perfect match. Alright, now that our general plan is settled, it's time for us to finally tackle the individual stages of this challenge run. If you're enjoying this video up until now, don't forget to hit the like button, it really helps me out a ton. As I already explained, stage 1 is fairly easy. We duel Bastion for duel points and use said points to buy sandwiches for him. We can also cram in a quick duel against Gillian here, who also uses the starting deck, so we don't have a hard time beating him at all. Can't say that about Bastion though. This is a good opportunity to take a closer look at how exactly our deck plays. All things considered, it's honestly not too bad. We have a few strong beaters, decent 1-tribute boss monsters, a few good tech cards like Giant Trunade, and a few decent removal options like Yami Ship. I mean, we got everything we need in order to beat most opponents in the game, period. We just need to draw the right cards at the right time. The reason why Bastion is difficult to beat is that he basically has all the same strengths, but better. He has stronger beat sticks, better removal options, you name it. Having things like Lightning Vortex, Mirror Force, and freaking Pot of Greed in your deck just goes a long way, you know? Luckily, he will be on our side soon enough. Also, a few sessions later, I decide to duel Bastion again, and this time we're actually able to win. He almost turned it around with a few hundred life points, but we managed to keep up the pressure and deal the final blow eventually. Very nice. Now, the dueling itself also contributes to the relationship building process, but it's actually so little that we don't even need to talk about it, especially when you lose. The sandwiches, on the other hand, are much more potent. At the time of recording the gameplay for this challenge, I actually knew way less about the sandwich system than I do now. I've done some quite extensive sandwich research for another video, but you will see that once it comes out.
I don't know, because I don't even know what sandwiches smell like. My parents are going to donate a lot of money to this school.
What I did know was that each character has sandwiches they like, love, dislike, hate, and so on. Sandwiches that they love fill half a heart's worth, while the others do significantly less. Bastion, being the disciplined Sigma male that he is, obviously favors a healthy diet, so he likes vegetables and loves the salad sandwich, so that's what we'll try to pull. Additionally, there's a random chance to find a golden egg sandwich during each in-game day, and if we manage to pull one, it automatically fills up an entire heart for any character. Wild, I know. At this point, it's also time for an important disclaimer. No save states or speed hacks were used in the pulling of these sandwiches. Every single sandwich was pulled with a full risk at real time. We still want this to be challenging, don't we? After filling each heart, there's a little event that occurs, although most of these are not even duels, but rather just talking to your soon-to-be partner before force-feeding them more sandwiches. Honestly, the more I explain about this game, the weirder it starts to sound, doesn't it? Oh well. In the meantime, we use the cards we got from the first class to upgrade our deck. And during the next day, we also get a mail from our dear Chancellor Shepard, who sponsors our most important endeavor here by donating 1000 duel points to our cause. Anyways, this procedure of dueling for points, buying sandwiches, talking to Bastion, and so on continues for quite a bit. Unlike in some of its sequels, the first Tag Force game does not have a special event duel after each filled heart in the relationship gauge, so we just grind it out as quickly as possible. We do pull a golden egg sandwich fairly early on though, which is always a great feeling. As you can see, this part of the game is really not that spectacular if you only focus on building the relationship as efficiently as possible. On the other hand, pulling these sandwiches is starting to get surprisingly addicting. I wonder what that says about me as a person. A bit further down the line, we even pull a Chaos Emperor Dragon and... Wait, did I write Enjoy of the... What the fuck? We even managed to pull a Chaos Emperor Dragon Envoy of the End from one of the plain sandwiches. I really need to stay careful. Would be a shame if I get so addicted to buying sandwiches that I start a challenge run mainly focused on this game mechanic while writing up a whole spreadsheet with point values for each main character and exact cycle generation timings to save scum them more efficiently. Yeah, there will be a video like this very soon. And yes, I have completely lost my mind over sandwiches in a PSP game. One cool thing about getting a potential partner early on is that you can visit the tag duels on Sunday and actually engage in the titular mechanic of this game.
Titular meaning he's a giant tit.
The perfect opportunity to test the might of our combined elemental forces. And hey, if we end up losing, it's okay, we don't get kicked out anyway. This goes surprisingly well, since, as we already know, our decks do go for the same general strategy. Place decently strong monsters on the field, beat over the opponent's monsters, and use a variety of removal options for stronger pieces. Sadly, there is nothing to win here, so after defeating an Obelisk blue team, as well as Zane and Alexis, I think it's time to leave. At least we know that our decks are more than powerful enough, especially with the upgrades from the tutorials. And I think we've terrorized these desperate souls long enough already. At this point in the campaign, we have already filled Bastion's meter to the max, but there are little events that do continue to happen if you befriend certain other characters enough. Bastion, as well as Cyrus, if memory serves me well, will occasionally ask you to practice with them, but under unusual conditions like a time limit on each turn or a different LP value. Honestly, this feature is easy to miss, but actually a lot of fun. They could have easily made this into a larger game mode to play on the side and test unorthodox strategies in a completely different meta. Oh well, we'll take what we got and just duel Bastion with 12k LP once. Aside from that, there's not much to say here. I played the exams, you know, just for fun, and then I skipped most of the other days so we can finally advance to stage 2. Alright, time for the actual gameplay to begin. This is the stage where I was hard stuck back when I was a kid, since the game only lets you advance if you manage to convince someone to become your sandwich buddy. Of course, we've already decided on Bastion right from the start, and since we've already tested the synergy of our decks, I'm quite confident in our choice. Chancellor Shepard hands us 10 GX tournament medals, and it is now upon us to turn them into 90. Yeah, that's quite a hefty jump, isn't it? But of course, we Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are very much used to obscene amounts of gambling, so let the grind begin. Alright, after wiping the floor with many renowned opponents, we earn our last 3 medals at the dueling field. Very fitting. And our final opponents in this long endeavor are, well, Pippin and... oh jeez. We are not finished with stage 2, however, as now comes the real challenge of this section. Now we have to face off against the absolute elite of this tournament. We will only be fighting the strongest teams from here on out. Teams that made it out of the bloodbath that is the 90 medal island grinds, and our first opponents are honestly quite cool. I always liked the Paradox Brothers from the first season, and it's a shame that they are quite underrepresented in most Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games. I'd love to see them more often. It's only a brief interaction though, as they are not able to withstand our watery forces, so we advance to the next level quickly. The next team is surely even more powerful than the brothers, so we have to climb up our way with caution. After all, we're about to face the combined efforts of the unpredictable Australian wildlife and decades-old engineering. Alright, Crowler and Chumley are not the weakest main characters by any stretch of the matter, and that deck synergy could be worse, even though it's a bit hard to believe. Especially after this particular duel, but alas, we move on to the 3rd floor. And what better way to be greeted than by the supposedly best and most definitely worst duelist of the entire academy. Now, I do wonder, does the blue hair run in the Truesdale family? Why do they have different shades though? Is this something like most babies having blonde hair that turns darker as they grow up? Is Cyrus secretly just like 2 years old? That would explain a lot. As I watch my gameplay footage on my second monitor while writing this, I notice how all the character icons appear so angry in this shot. I don't know, it's kind of funny. The Truesdales at least play archetypes that could have some synergy. Sometimes, if the stars align, but our magnificent 1800 attack vanilla monsters beatdown strategy is simply too much to overcome. Now, I might have to remind you, but Zane already knows this from a few weeks back, so it seems that he believes his little baby brother a more competent duelist than Alexis, best student in the whole academy, renowned duelist, brother to one of the Shadow Riders, and probably the first truly competitive female duelist in the entire franchise. The first that didn't blatantly cheat with ancient Egyptian observation haki or perfume, I suppose.
How could an amateur punk like you see through my aroma strategy? It sure is lucky I don't still have that cold from the previous episode.
Now it does beg the question, is Zane actually sexist, or is he simply a moron whose reputation is upheld by hearsay alone?
I want a refund!
Maybe he's both. I guess we'll never know, but we do know that he is hard countered by level 4 water monsters, so that's exactly what he gets. The brothers do put up a good fight, I'll give them that, but they never really come close to victory. We trade resources for a few turns, and ultimately our attack boosting setup of Field Spell plus Starboy over here, who's the real goat of our deck, is just way too much for them to handle. Pathetic. Our final opposing team of Stage 2 consists of the main character, whose dueling prowess is matched only by the King of Games himself, and whose remarkable character growth throughout the story inspired an entire generation of young kids all around the world. And Jaden. He's also there. Okay, for real, how's the final battle against opponents with the weakest deck synergy by far? I mean, look at this. Chaz even opens with his perfect combo of using Lightning Vortex to wipe our field, discard Oja Magic in order to pull all 3 original Ojamas, activate Polymerization, which he already opened with, and summon his boss monster on his first turn. The pinnacle of all of this is that the card that destroys his strongest play is freaking Fissure, which I draw on my first turn. It's comical, but very fitting for Mr. Manjome. The rest of the duel is more of the usual, and a few turns later we stand victorious as the best team of the entire tournament. All jokes aside, the idea behind this tournament is pretty nice. I love how lively the island seems during it. Opposing teams are found wherever you go, and basically everyone is participating. I don't know, the immersion of these games was always something I really enjoyed. If they had just made the gameplay and tournament structure a bit more interesting, could have been even better, but I digress. Stage 2 is officially completed, and it is now where the actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans begin. Stage 3 is much shorter, but way more challenging. After all, we have to defeat the Shadow Riders, a band of mysterious and intimidating figures, hell-bent on wreaking havoc wherever they go. What a shame that in reality, they're mostly very easy to beat. Gimmicky decks with impossible win conditions and at times ridiculously stupid effects. How did all of these main characters lose to these clowns anyway? Okay, now that's embarrassing. And against this idiot of all people, ridiculous. How could this happen? Well, I guess the answer is a combination of 2 things. 1, our opponents have more strong tech cards, so they can spam Lightning Vortex and Snatch Steal more often than us. And 2, Ojamas are actually not that horrible if you can block 4 out of 5 of your opponent's monster fields and place 1 decently strong piece on the board. Who would have guessed? Of course, we're not letting them get away with this. Rematch time. A few turns in, Chaz actually manages to block most of our field again. I told you, he's the main character, he's got plot armor. We managed to keep up for a while, but having only 1 monster field available really limits our water deck specifically, and without any attack power-ups, we can't even beat over Golem Sentry. This is not good. But then, after eons, we finally draw a field spell, slam it on the field, and overpower our opponent completely. The turns table in our favor, and we can defeat these 2 for good. I really went on a tangent there, only to lose against the first team, didn't I? Let's hope it remains the only significant loss in this challenge. Next up is Abydos, and I honestly don't remember much about this guy from watching the anime back in the day. I even distinctly remember that he felt lackluster and bland back then. What can I say, not much has changed. If you asked me, I couldn't even tell you what kind of deck he plays, as he was no match for our team. Even though Spirit Reapers does save them, it's not for long. I guess it's kind of fitting that I would pair the weakest Shadow Rider with the worst duelist in the world, probably. On an unrelated note, Nightshroud is next, and he convinced his little sister to play on the evil side today. She did refuse to wear a silly costume though, leaving him disappointed and unmotivated to actually win this thing. Good for us. The roads do get bodied, and we continue. It's finally nighttime now, and you all know what that means.
What the?
We break into the super rare, awesome, chocolatey, fudge-coated Mega Super Arena, but the developers were smart enough not to place the final enemy there until all riders have been defeated. What a shame. And since there are no alcohol sandwiches in the shop, we have to drown our relentless sorrow in the vast depths of the ocean.
At least the ocean will never leave me. Right, Ocean? Why don't you ever answer me, Ocean?
But oh look, there's Crowler with our favorite dueling street grifter. Oh well, maybe second favorite?
In America.
Time to teach them a lesson for once. Get it? Even though Titan's archetype is probably not very dangerous, Crowler's Ancient Gear cards can get quite annoying if he gets a good opening hand. Luckily he just doesn't, and after a short brawl with one of the Titan's Archfiends, we win on turn 8. It's still nighttime, and I'm seriously starting to wonder why all of the teaching staff is meeting up in public so late at night, especially in these eerie locations. Don't they have, like, their own rooms for some privacy? Maybe hooking up at night in the woods while evil forces are trying to take over the whole world just hits different. Beats me. Anyhow, seeing Amnel paired up with Jaden in this creepy building once again does a lot for my immersion. Imagine if the duels were actually harder and mechanically more interesting. This game could have been so much better than it already is. Jaden and Banner take a strong beating, but the Cyberjar is able to turn things around for them. After that, we get a decent back and forth, as well as a short glimpse at some of Banner's cards. I always thought that the Helios monsters looked pretty cool. Wait, is it Helios or Helios? Whatever, you know what I mean. Like, these. They're not really all that powerful though, so we ultimately gain the upper hand and defeat them for good. But I have to say that they took the longest to beat so far. You know, aside from the first fight we lost a few minutes ago. Now, usually we'd be able to face off against Tanya, who's paired up with Bastion, but it seems like she's not capable of making a good sandwich, naturally disqualifying her from the Shadow Riders. Kamula is our final candidate for today, and I always felt like she was supposed to be the most powerful of them. Her face certainly is, but all of her supernatural powers cannot possibly outweigh Zane's fear of the sea, it seems. They lose quickly and easily, and I know I might be repeating myself again, but how exactly is Zane the best duelist of the Academy? I would really like to know. At this point, only one opponent is left. We head to the rooftop of this incredibly oversized tournament facility, and upon arrival, I'm reminded of how ridiculous Kagemaru's, well, container looks like. In sheer disbelief, I quickly open a YouTube clip of their anime duel at the end of Season 1, and lo and behold, this mech suit thing looks even more stupid when animated. I mean, just look at how he draws cards from his dueling disc, hilarious. Unlike in the anime, where Kagemaru is rejuvenated by the powers of the sacred beasts and breaks free from his apparatus in the middle of the fight, the game handles this slightly differently. He only does this once you beat him in the first duel, and then you gotta do it again. But best of all, you need to do all of that by yourself. Your partner is just standing on the sideline and cheering you on, I guess? I still find this so anticlimactic, especially for a game where you typically build your deck to synergize with your partner's deck as much as possible. Now, it would be very much in line for this game to serve as a very weak opponent as the final encounter, someone who we can steamroll easily, but no, not this time. Originally, he plays a deck that is supposed to bring out all 3 sacred beasts, but it seems that he has realized how stupid that actually is and focuses mostly on Uriah and Raviel. As a result, he plays a lot of continuous trap cards that turn this duel into a real nightmare. Especially Ordeal of the Traveler over here. This is the most annoying card in the entire run. Every time I make a wrong guess, we do 0 damage, and if things go really south, we can lose our monsters on top of that. The first duel even exceeded the 40-turn mark, making it the longest duel in this entire challenge run, and to make things worse, Kagemaru slaps a 12,000 attack we have Slifer at home on the field and attacks for game. Fantastic. At least the second try goes a lot better. He only opens with the second most annoying trap card, Fairy Box, and we manage to win enough coin tosses to destroy his entire board. After 21 turns, precisely half as many as the fight before, we finally win. Now it's time for 3 times Mr. Olympia finalist Kagemaru over here. At this point, I couldn't exactly remember what happens if you lose to the young version. Would you have to redo both duels? I hope we don't have to find out. I suppose he probably plays a very similar deck to what he had previously, but this duel right here is a beautiful display of why decks like this often have a hard time. If you don't open with a good hand, you're screwed. We win the last duel of the game during the 5th turn, marking this the shortest duel of the entire challenge run, coming back full circle. Can you beat Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Tag Force 1 without buying cards from the shop? Yes, you can. I guess some of us already knew, but when it comes to Tag Force 1, I might have something more unique coming your way pretty soon. Anyway folks, I hope you had fun watching. If you like what I do here on the channel, make sure to like this video, it really helps me out a ton, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, we've been streaming some very fun challenge runs in Capsule Monster Colosseum and some other Yu-Gi-Oh! Titles on this very channel, so if that's something you're interested in, make sure to tune in every Thursday evening European time. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.